I'm joined by USC Trojan head coach Clay Helton. Coach, how you doing?
Doing great, RJ. Thanks for having me today.
No, I appreciate you doing this with us, Coach, as we're wrapping up spring ball going into the summer. And I got to say, your depth chart has me a little bit giddy, man. Like, you secure the number one rated player in the country in Corey Foreman. He's going to probably book in with Drake Jackson some way, Jackson Dart, Miller Moss. Are you as excited about this 21 season as I am?
Yeah, very much so. We got that abbreviated season last year and really have had a tremendous offseason, not only recruiting, but in the development of our team over the spring, and really looking forward to the 21 season. You're only as good as the pieces that are around you, and really feel the pieces and the men that we have around us right now are really special.
So there's this thing going on offense that I very much enjoy because I'm an air raid truther, right? Like that's where I come from. But the offense that y'all are running is not an air raid so much as it is whatever Graham Harrell, Seth, and McGuire come up with. Yeah. And I wonder, how is that meshing going into this? I think it's, year 3 with Graham as your offense coordinator?
Yeah, definitely. It's been an offense that's produced about 35 points a game that we really feel that has that dynamics of the passing game from the air raid, but truly takes advantage of the defense. The run game is a huge part of us, and we tend to lean on taking what the defense gives us. If you're going to drop 8 and play too high, then we've got some really talented running backs like Bavai, Malapai, Keontae Ingram, who just came about with us, Keenan Kristen, the availability to get a Brandon Campbell as an incoming freshman. And so we've got some really special kids here that if you do want to drop 8, we'll hand the ball off. We're disciplined enough to hand it off. And if you want to go ahead and play man coverage, now you got to deal with Drake London and Bru McCoy and Gary Bryant and those type of people outside. So it's a good marriage. It really is. It's something that we go into each game trying to be balanced, but the route concepts, like you said, are air raid based, but it's a different philosophy overall as far as the game flow.
In this offense, quarterbacks are not just your stars, but they also do a lot of the workload. Threw the ball about 59% of the time in a very small sample size last year. Would you like that to be more 50-50, more power run game oriented in some situations?
Well, I think there's going to be times that it is going to be skewed. Like we played Washington State last year, and Washington State came in and played man coverage every snap. And so you may get 60 throws that game, and then there's times that you look at Arizona State. Arizona State played a lot of too high, and all of a sudden you look up and it's a 200-yard rushing day. So there's going to be give and take there based on what the defense has given us. By nature, I think we'll be slightly more pass than run, probably about 55 to 45 at the end of the day in any given sample size year. But we're more. I really appreciate Graham because he just doesn't force the pass. He's got the discipline and the patience to be able to mix in the run game, especially with the runners that we have.
How has this transition been for you? Because we're talking about 2016. You want to be run oriented. You want to play defense. You want to look a lot like David Shaw and the Cardinal. And you guys were really, really good at that, finishing number 3 in 2017. And then you get this hard pivot to something that makes people a little bit uneasy when they've been raised on student body left, student body right, the great tailbacks that have come through USC. How has it been for you to try to let your offensive coordinator be who he needs to be?
Well, our game is changing. It really is. And you've seen it over really the last decade. It really becoming, because of our hash marks, especially in the college game, there is so much grass, whether it's vertically, horizontally, you got to defend every inch. And you're looking, you see teams around the country, you see Alabama, you see Clemson, even Ohio State going to more spread, being able to attack that area of grass. And for me, in looking at having been here now going into my 12th season, it was evident to me that the one thing that we always have here at USC is tremendous quarterbacks. The tradition of excellence at this school with quarterbacks, especially on the West Coast, and how many quarterbacks are produced on the West Coast, you're always going to have that dynamic. The other thing that always comes is the availability at our school to be able to be elite on the outside. I think about just in my time here. I mean, Robert Woods, Marquise Lee, Juju Smith-Schuster, Nelson Aguilar, Deontay Burnett, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Michael Pittman, Tyler Vaughns. I could go on and on. And, that dynamic and the way football was going, at some point in time, there's a risk that has to be taken because you feel like it's best for your football team. And I think it's the future of not only our game, but you're seeing the NFL change up now too. I think of the Kansas City Chiefs, and I think of Cliff being at Arizona and what they're doing. So you're seeing this progression. And I really felt with our personnel that we can acquire that we could be elite within this system. And going into year 3, I think you're going to see something really special. I really do. This has been about a 35-point offense. I really think it could be a 40-plus point offense a game. And I look forward to watching this year coming up.
I mean, you mentioned those dudes, and I mean, yes. I mean, number one, because that's just nasty. The second part of that is Drake London's still there. And I'm asking about him in particular because I don't know that I've seen a guy. Let's call it the Y. Let's not call it tight end because that's. I don't think that's a misnomer with him. I haven't seen that at a USC. Is that a product of him and where he lines up, or is that how you guys have designed it?
Well, I tell you, when you look at it, when Graham first came in, he said, Coach, there's 2 things that end up happening. You have your outside receivers, primarily the X has usually been a guy that has been probably the leading receiver, but don't overlook the wide position because when they do play too high coverage and they try to bracket the outside receivers, there's that one-on-one matchup with the Mike backer or backers or safeties. And Drake has caused havoc in there. Now, we really feel, to be honest with you, that Drake's potential can line up anywhere, and you'll see him on the outside this year. I really think he's going to be more Mike Evans-ish. At the end of the day, I think he's going to be Mike Evans and be able to show. I've watched it in the spring where now we've moved him outside some, and man, he has been dynamic. I mean, he is a nightmare. So we don't ever want him to be found. So we did this in my first year here, in my first 3 years here with Coach Kiffin. I remember with Robert Woods being our lead target, he was catching over 100 balls a game, and Marquise Lee, and you had to move him around so you didn't get bracketed. You could never find them, whether it was inside, whether it was outside, whether it was motion out of the backfield. You had to create ways to make sure that they couldn't find that guy and he wasn't targeted in a specific position. And that's what we'll do with Drake this year.
It's one of the things I love about the sport and how I think it differs from every other sport is if you got a guy that is great and you can move him around, DeMarco Murray, Percy Harvin, those guys come to mind, you go and do that. I want to talk about the transfer portal for just a second here, but also how Clay Helton, the nice guy, has ended up with so many of these jewels, right? And I'm pointing to a guy like Bru McCoy, Horus, going off like an Egyptian god. I've been a big fan of that dude since his sophomore year at Modern Day, right? When he's catching passes from JT Daniels and the likes, and we know what the pipeline is out there. Is he poised to have the kind of season that we all thought he could have when he first got to college?
Oh, definitely. We got a little taste of it last year in that abbreviated season and him coming on board and really getting back in love with the game. And really having the opportunity to be himself. And it was great to see him smile and just enjoy, enjoy the game again. And to watch him play last year, it reminded me, I've known Bru for, oh my gosh, forever. He lives about 2 miles from my house. So I watched this kid grow up, and he's not only a special talent, but he's a special person. And to be able to watch him play last year was just a taste. I can't tell you how special this kid's going to be. He's a lot like Michael Pittman, to be honest with you. He's this offensive player that plays with a defensive mentality. If you remember him at Modern Day, Michael was the same way at Oaks Christian. They were as good at defensive players as they were an offensive player, and they bring this defensive mentality, this toughness to them. And Bru has that. And so, we're really counting on him this year to be a major factor within this offense, to be able himself, Gary Bryant, some others that really can be able to draw some attention away from Drake, where you just can't say, okay, hey, let's shut this guy down because you got to go deal with Bru, Gary, and a host of others on the other side. And so he's got a huge role for us this year, and I expect some really big things from him, to be honest.
Hey, Coach, if you want to talk Coach Orlando into let him line up at edge, it ain't gonna hurt my feelings none. I'm just gonna let you know. I'm gonna be here for it.
They recruit him every day. They literally recruit him every day.
Hey, I don't blame him. I don't blame him at all. But on that defensive side of the ball, you lose Talanoa Hufanga, right? Who I thought was outstanding as a box safety. Am I?
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, we label him the boundary safety. The boundary safety, Isaiah Polamalu, was the field safety last year. And obviously, one of the exciting things in bringing T.O. in, bringing Coach Orlando in, I just really felt that his system fit our personnel to a T. And one of the guys that had just a huge benefit out of it is Talanoa. Created an All-American season for the kid, and obviously a great draft pick for San Francisco. But he is one of those kids, as well as others. I think of Drake Jackson, how he's flourished within this system. Kanai Moaga, Isaiah Polamalu, Nick Figueroa. There's just been so many different guys, Marlon Tuipulotu last year, that had breakout seasons because of the system and how they fit in it. And so, Talanoa was one of those guys that really, got to show every one of his skill sets, his ability to be a box player, to be a post player, to be a flat zone in space player, to come off the edge and pressure, to play man coverage. He got to show every one of those skill sets. Not only that helped us, but it helped himself personally going to the NFL.
Who is your guy on defense that you are looking to lead it? And I'm going to throw a name at you. Chris Steele looks like that dude for me, but you might have somebody else in mind.
Yeah. Well, there's a couple, and Chris is one of them. That we've had some guys here that have played a lot of football now. Chris Steele comes to mind. He brings this edginess to him, this confidence to him. Really had a very good year last year in that abbreviated season, and has really carried it over to spring. He's got a chip on his shoulder and a sense of urgency to be great. I think of Isaiah Polamalu and the steps he took last year, and kind of his off season and how he led our defense throughout the spring. I think of a young player. And a guy that I think is going to be one of the better stories this year is Tuipulotu, who's Marlon's younger brother, who really had a great freshman season for us last year, but has really showed a lot of maturity in this spring. And then obviously every time 99 lines up on the field, you just hold your breath because he's going to do something great in Drake Jackson. I just absolutely love watching this kid play. But those are the guys that kind of stand out to me right now. You could throw a Raylan Goforth, a Kanai Moaga in there in that group also, but it's really been a really, really good spring for our defensive crew. And that's probably one of the things, RJ, we missed last year. If you remember, we didn't get a spring. We had a very shortened fall training camp. And so what's been really nice about this spring is, Coach Orlando's personality, that edgy toughness, gritty, he's been able to inject that into this defense along with a Vic Soto and a Craig Niver and a Dante Williams. Their personalities have now come on with this defense and really had really took major steps forward. I thought we improved a lot last year with bringing T.O. on board, but now having this offseason, I'm really expecting big things from that group.
You mentioned Vic and Dante, and the lifeblood of this sport is recruiting. And I'd be remiss if I did not mention you remade your recruiting department altogether. I know a bunch of those dudes that you hired on by name, and I got to ask, what was your thought process there, and how did you know that it was going to come off this way? You guys have been outstanding in the pandemic of all things, finishing, I think, number 7 with a recruiting class. And I don't know how much stock you put into rankings and stars, but me looking at it, I see Jackson Dart. I see Miller Moss, right? I see Corey. I know those dudes could play. How did you go and identify the guys you needed to help you redo your recruiting department?
Yeah, well, one, I got to thank Mike Bone and Brandon Sosna in our athletic department. We had a vision that we've gotten to the point that you can't rely on this brand as far as just leaning on it so much. The tradition, respect the tradition of the brand, which is to me, the pinnacle of college football. It's a tradition of excellence that's over 125 years. But you got to fight for innovation. And obviously, you're not only recruiting against the West Coast, you're recruiting against national, the Alabama's, Clemson's, Ohio State's, and this is a national brand. And to be able to do that, there's been other things that are needed, personnel within your recruiting department, video production, graphic design. Things are so visual nowadays for 18-year-olds. And then bringing elite recruiters in like Dante, like Vic, like a Craig Niver, a Seth Dagey, who's our tight end coach, done a tremendous job, had a huge influence, with Jackson, Dart, so it's something that you got to have the right people, but you also have to know the technology side. And Mike and Brandon, I thought, did a great job for us because they saw the vision that we wanted, and then they went and invested in it. They went in and got J1S, a brand marketing merger that we did, and really created Boulevard Studios, which is helping us as we head towards the name, image, and likeness phase of college football and college athletics to be able to build the brand. We saw that with a Juju Smith-Schuster while he was here, to be able to, while you're in college, while you're in Los Angeles, being able to really grow your brand and your platform while you're here, that will help you not only while you're here, but down the road when you're a professional player. So it was so awesome to be supported by Mike and by Brandon, to have a vision and them being able to give us the resources to make that vision come to life.
Yo, man, I'm grateful for you embracing name, image, and likeness and pointing to Juju, because I come up on YouTube, right? And Juju is he's a YouTuber, right? Yeah. But also it makes coaches and fans uneasy in this direction that we are going. As a matter of fact, the state that you're in was the first to adopt name, image, and like legislation that is scheduled to go through 2023. We'll see how that happens. But how have you adapted after, 30 years of being a coach?
Yeah, for me, at the end of the day, my responsibility is to make sure that our student athletes are the most valuable asset that they can become when they leave us. And there's a couple ways to get that done. One is education, is making sure that you're coming to one of the top 15 ranked academic institutions there are in the country, being able to get your degree, put a master's on top of that, build your brand while you're here. Be able to build a platform that can carry you not just for a 4-year experience, but a 30, 40, 50-year experience, And so to be able to help young men and women within our athletic department be able to make themselves the most valuable asset they can become, that's a pleasure. That's a joy. That should be welcomed, to be able to help student athletes, 18 to 21-year-olds. That's the beauty of this thing, is putting the final stamp, taking a young man or young woman at 18, and when they leave you at 21, they're ready for the real world. They're ready to go perform in the real world, whether that's on or off the field. And, we just have a great luxury here. I think the city of Los Angeles, and it's the name of one-word towns, one-word names. It's Kobe, it's LeBron, it's Snoop, it's Juju, it's Adoree, and to be able to help young men and women build that image and the platform and the messaging they want to get across is only going to help them in the future. So I welcome it, to be honest with you. I like I tell our recruits, I want to be 80 and then be 55. And they say, thank you, coach. Thank you for allowing us to come to USC. I'm taking care of my children's children because of what I accomplished there. And so that's something that I welcome, to be honest with you, and look forward to even more of the future as we head towards this.
Right on. No, that makes me feel better, coach, because I'm always about the kiddos, and I lean in their direction. They get 5 years to play 4. I want them to come out as far ahead as they can, because the world is a tough place to exist. Now, I want to talk about the other big issue in college football, expansion of the playoff. You for, you against? Do you have an argument?
Well, right now we're at 4, so we have to live within the 4. We have to find a way to get there.
Okay.
I do think at some point in time that it is going to increase. I really do. I think that you're going to see somewhere between maybe 8 to 16 teams that are going to be included. I think it's good for college football. I think it's going to create even more excitement, more competitiveness. It'll give the availability of not only Power 5 conferences, but mid-majors to be able to be involved. And I think it's going to create a lot of excitement. I think we're headed that way. I really do. And I look forward to it. I would encourage it. Right now, we got to know the reality. There's dreaming and then there's reality. And the reality is right now we're at 4. So we've got to do our best job of, one, producing a great resume, which we got a great opportunity this year, 9 conference games. And then you throw a San Jose State, a BYU, and a Notre Dame in there, all top 25 teams last year, be able to build that resume, go be a conference champion and get to that playoff, so we got to live in the reality, but I look forward to the future because I do feel like we will expand at some point in time.
Yeah, y'all got a sneaky tough schedule. Like San Jose State's undefeated going into their bowl game. We know what BYU was. We know Notre Dame made the playoff. And I've looked at the schedule. I'm going, okay, all right, let's see what you got here. Let's see what you got 21. But to your point about the mid-majors, right? You spent a significant amount of time at Memphis. And I'm a graduate of the University of Tulsa. So I know something about playing against Memphis. Yeah. And the first thing I thought was, man, it'd been great to get one of those teams in. The second thing I thought was, yo, did you recruit D'Angelo Williams?
I was there with D'Angelo, who was a joy, an absolute joy to recruit and coach. And so I've been with those programs and played against some really good teams. And I look in the recent future. You think of Central Florida, you think of Cincinnati. I don't think anybody in the country wants to play those teams. I mean, they're really good football teams, extremely well coached. And there's more out there too that you can name, so I think it makes it better for college football when we do expand. I really do. I think it's going to create more excitement. I look forward to getting, whether it's 8, 12, 16, whatever it is. And I think it's going to provide a high level of competition. I think it's going to help all conferences. I really do. And we'll live in reality and we'll fight our butt off for those 4 spots right now and do our job. But also I look forward to the future and I look forward to seeing it grow at some point in time.
Ladies and gentlemen, is this thing on? The head coach of one of the blue blood programs of college football said it's okay. We're going to be okay. If we expand the playoff, it's going to be fine. No, I appreciate that. I really do, because I want to see the sport grow. I want to see more people have more opportunities. And my thing has always been, try telling the 5,500 kids that play outside of the Autonomous 5 that they're not good enough to play for a national championship. And you can't, right? Nobody can get that out of their heart to say. I appreciate that, Coach. I want to get back to recruiting for just a second here. And if you would, take us inside your process of how you decide what areas you're going to focus on, whether it's position or whether it's just the local area. For instance, Los Angeles ain't exactly, bad at football, right? I mean, it ain't like the state of California ain't putting out prospects. So do you prioritize in that way? Do you prioritize in need? What do you look for?
Yeah, definitely. There's a couple avenues here, RJ, to discuss. One, we're very fortunate because of our geographic location. You think about the West Coast, especially states like California, Southern California. You think about the growth that an Arizona has, Utah has had, Nevada has had. You've seen Oregon, Washington, Hawaii, the products that are coming out of there. You have those 7 states there on that West Coast that are very strong. And if we're signing 25, you'll probably see 18 to 20 come out of this West Coast footprint. But we are a national brand. And I remember having the opportunity to recruit a Nelson Aguilar and a Leonard Williams. And when you step outside, you go, okay, we really feel this gentleman is a first-round draft pick. He fits our culture. He fits Los Angeles. He fits what we're trying to do. And he's looking, big picture aspirations. He wants an elite private school education. He's comfortable in maybe coming across the country for 3 to 4 years to invest in himself. It's got to be the right fit. So you look up and anywhere from 5 to 7 we'll acquire. nationally. I think of Ronald Jones and coming out of McKinney, Texas, and having the chance to recruit him, and what he was looking for we were his perfect fit, for that kid. So it's got to be the right fit. And it's obviously, if we can acquire the same level of talent at that position on the West Coast, we're probably going to take it, because we don't want to compete. We don't want to compete. I don't want him to go to Washington or Oregon or UCLA or another school. But there's also this new dynamic with the transfer portal. I'll be honest with you, that especially with schools like ourselves that are going to have, we had 7 young men leave early for the NFL draft. And so you're going to have some NFL draft attrition. You may have some guys that graduate that have their degree from USC that are in their last year of eligibility that maybe want a grander role, and you have that type of attrition. So you have to also, I think, what schools will do will use that transfer portal, kind of like I remember Les Snead did an amazing job with the Rams a couple of years ago. They thought about, with them being a playoff team and they wanted to go to the Super Bowl, who did they bring in? Dominican Sue. They brought in Marcus Peters. They brought in Talib. And just those acquisitions took them from a playoff team to a Super Bowl team. I think that's what you're going to have to do as we move forward in this transfer portal world. There'll be, anywhere from 3 to 5 men that you may bring on at specific positions that they want an opportunity, and we want the opportunity to coach them, and they can help us. Right now, I think of a Keontae Ingram, that just came on board with us, that has the opportunity to a 2,000-yard rusher at Texas coming here to help us this season. I think of a KD Nixon, 103 reception guy in Colorado, that comes on to be able to bolster our wideout. So I think there's some pieces that each school will pick to bring in, and kind of we've turned into an NFL free agent market, to be honest with you. And if we have the availability to get to 85 total men on scholarship, you'll pick those certain men to be able to come in and help your program.
I'm with you, Coach. Like they call it roster management now, and I say it just means that you're still recruiting. That's all.
Yeah, no
Once
question.
they get there, you're just recruiting.
It never ends. It's 365 days every day. every day.
Well, I say this often, but it feels like a young man's sport, right? The older you get, like I marvel at Mac Brown, for instance, who's going to turn 70 in August.
Oh my gosh.
Right. And he's still out here wanting to do this, because you have to want to do it. What drives you to want to do it, Coach?
Yeah. Well, for me, I'm a coach's son. I watched my dad. He was 48-year NFL and college coach. And I saw the influence he had in young men's lives at both levels. And for me, my niche was always college. I love the educational piece. I love the 18 to 21-year-old window. Like I said, I love taking that young man and helping him grow into a true professional when he leaves at 21. That's my niche. That's what gets me up and makes me smile. But I'm also at USC. I'm at the Walt Disney World of college football coach, and I get to wake up and coach Drake London and Keaton Slovis, Drake Jackson, and Corey Foreman. I get, not only are they great athletes, they're great people, they're great students. And when you get to be able to wake up and be a part of that each and every day, you're talking about giving you energy and juice. I mean, it's just like every day you're surrounded by greatness, and you want to live up to that greatness for them, that standard of excellence for them, and help them get to where they want to go. And so this has always been my niche. It always will be. I love the college game. And I don't know if I could be the force of nature that Mac Brown is to 70, because that's a special dude. But I tell you what, this game keeps you young. This game keeps you energized, and it gives you purpose each and every day that you're helping a young man go do something special with his life.
I sometimes end these conversations by asking you to give me your pitch for why I should come to your school. But I think I think I heard it, Coach. Like I think you got it. No, I've enjoyed this greatly. I appreciate you taking time to talk with us, and I wish you so much success in 2021. USC Trojan head coach Clay Helton, thank you so much, sir.
RJ, it's been a pleasure. Thank you, buddy.